My name is Matt Nesbitt. I currently work for Wood PLC based in Aberdeen, and I was at Aberdeen University for the years of 1999 through to 2003. I studied engineering, so I was a Bachelor of Engineers with honours in electrical and electronic engineering with a course in management as well.
Thank you very much. First question is, why did you choose University of Aberdeen?
Originally I'm from a town called Nairn, which is about 2 hours north of Aberdeen, so it was reasonably close in terms of proximity. I think probably a few other driving factors. My brother also attended Aberdeen University, as did my mother, so there was a family connection there and a legacy there, and both individuals spoke very, very highly of Aberdeen University. I think the other aspect I found particularly appealing was that Aberdeen industry and at that time oil and gas was a very big part of industry. Aberdeen University had strong linkages to industry, so I could see beyond the academic phase that I was about to enter, but how did that translate into a job and into a career? So there's an aspect of the linkage between the university and the industry, which is still a big part of the Scottish economy. The other aspect was, as I wanted to study engineering, the university had a really strong reputation for producing good engineering undergraduates. So yeah, there was quite a few factors, both kind of personal aspect, but also probably quite a kind of a technical, still professional aspect as well.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. To follow up this question, why did you choose to study engineering?
So that is an interesting question. When I was in secondary school or high school, I actually did a part-time job building ROVs, remote operating vehicle circuit boards and control units for a friend of the family who had a business that supplied the subsea engineering oil and gas sector. So my kind of first taster into building electronics was, I'll be honest, it was probably driven by a pay thing, right? It was a better job part-time doing that than working in a supermarket. But I actually found that I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed understanding how things work and the practical aspect of pieces of equipment and how they could be put to use in an industrial kind of application. So yeah, when I was at school, I built these circuit boards, quite enjoyed it. I could see a further education aspect to that, and then obviously it can translate into a working environment. So that's probably the biggest driver.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And the next question is, what did you hope to learn and achieve while at Aberdeen, and how your goals changed since graduating?
Yeah, I mean, I think like most young, I obviously went to university straight after school, so I was about 18 when I went to university, so I was still developing as a person. So there's a large part of my time at university was finding out who I was as a person and building new relationships, getting to know new people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different countries. Obviously Aberdeen University was quite a diverse student body, engineering even more so. There was a large demographic there. So there was a lot of getting to find out what kind of person I was, broadening my horizons. I also did have, as I said earlier on, I did have an eye on how did academia translate into a career. So I was hoping to learn, the necessary skills to get the required qualifications to probably springboard where did I want to get to in terms of my working life as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. Aberdeen University was a great time, and I'll be honest, I did have a very busy social life as well. It was a very interesting time outside of the lecture hall or tutorials.
Yes, thank you. Next question is, were you part of any clubs or societies?
I wasn't. To be honest with you, it's probably one of my bigger regrets. Most of my time was outside of the traditional kind of lecture halls and theatres and such like. Was just meant more socialising. it's probably, on reflection, one of the things I probably missed out on. There was plenty of clubs and societies involved at Aberdeen University, but I didn't really take advantage of them. And I guess, I have children myself now. They're all 4 children, and they're all quite a way away from going to university. But advice I would probably give them would be, make sure you take the full university experience, not just the social aspect, not just the academic aspect, but the kind of the clubs and societies, because again, that kind of broadens your connections and knowledge base. So no, I wasn't involved with any clubs, sadly.
I see. Did you participate in any internships?
I did. So when I was at university, I actually worked for Rolls-Royce Energy Systems during one of my summer placements, which was based just outside of Aberdeen, and it provided the aeroderivative engines for a lot of the offshore oil and gas facilities. So again, learned a lot about the technical aspects. Although I was electrical and electronic engineer, picked up quite a bit of mechanical engineering experience while I was working for Rolls-Royce. And again, probably a piece of advice would be, complement your academic studies with real-world practical applications. And I think having the two of them together certainly probably served me for graduation and then entering the world of work and pursuing a career. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed working for Rolls-Royce. Was close to joining Rolls-Royce outside of when I graduated, but I took a different path. So
that's very interesting. Thank you. And what is Wood?
So Wood is it's a global engineering and technical services company of about 35-ish thousand people. It works in probably 50 plus different countries all around the world, working in lots of different sectors, industrial sectors, whether that be oil and gas, which is a large part of the business, whether it be renewables, mining, pharmaceuticals, lots and lots of different industries, and provides full asset life cycles of services. So what that means is basically our customers will come to us and depending on what service they're looking for, we can provide front-end consultancy in terms of they maybe want to build a facility, or we can provide a project in terms of project management, and we can actually build a facility. Some customers may already have a facility and they want modifications to that facility, or they want operations and maintenance support to that facility, so we provide those services. And then at the other end of the spectrum, where a facility or an asset has been through its operational life cycle and it's coming down and it's maybe needing to be repurposed or decommissioned, and we can provide that kind of decommissioning and asset repurposing service as well. So as I say, we provide the full asset life cycle services from blank piece of paper of I have an idea, I might want to build a facility, right the way through to removing that facility and everything in between. And as I say, it covers lots of different sectors that we work in.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. And how has Wood grown and changed in the past few years?
Oh, how long have you got? It's when I joined, it was actually called Wood Group rather than Wood PLC, and that was back in 2003. And at that time, it was 13,000 people globally. Wood PLC, as we are now, at its peak, was up to about 60,000 people globally. And a lot of that change has been driven by organic growth. So, just growing in the regions and the locations that we work in with existing customers or attracting new customers. But part of that growth has also been through buying other companies and entering new markets and, providing different services, different geographies, etc. So the company that I joined in 2003 to the company that is now in 2024 is very, very different. And as I say, it's more than quadrupled in size at one point. So it's been a really, really interesting journey and a very diverse career that I've had within the company.
Thank you. How did you get started at Wood?
So I joined as a graduate engineer based here in Aberdeen. So as I say, having the academic tools tools in my toolbox that the university provided with me, plus the kind of real world experience that I kind of gained through school and then obviously through internships. I joined the Wood Group graduate training scheme as it was back in 2003, went through a formal training program and then led to me becoming a chartered engineer and moving through different aspects of the career that I've had with the company, which is just over 20 years now. So
Yes, thank you. And what are your current responsibilities at Wood?
So I don't get to do too much technical engineering these days. As I mentioned earlier, my career in the company has been really diverse. So I started in a very technical engineering role. My current role is Vice President for Growth and Development for Europe, Middle East, Africa and Caspian region. And it's more of a business strategy role that I do now. So my role is to support the organization in terms of looking at market trends, looking at growth opportunities, and continuing to build the business year on year so that we see incremental growth and enhanced profitability. So it's a much more business-based role that I do now. Obviously, having a technical engineering background and quite a diverse background probably gives me an optic that allows me to look at those things I mentioned with an engineer's mind as well as a business brain.
Yes.
So yeah, I cover quite a wide geography as well, lots of different countries, lots of different customers and such like.
That's impressive. That's impressive. And does Wood provide internships for students?
We do. We provide internships and we also have a flourishing graduate scheme as well. It's definitely something I would recommend to any young individual, whether that be engineering or business studies and various other disciplines. Obviously, we have lots of different aspects to the company, so you don't have to be just an engineer to join to Wood. So yeah, but we have internships for summer placements, and indeed a lot of our summer placements do then tend to be taken on full-time into careers.
What are the essential skills that you develop in your previous positions that help you in your career?
Yeah, I think, so as I say, I've had quite a diverse career in the 20 years I've been with Wood. Obviously, I'm based in Aberdeen. I started in Aberdeen, but I've also lived and worked in the USA, in Houston. I've lived and worked in Rio de Janeiro. So I think some of the skills that that's given me is enhanced understanding of cultural differences, enhanced understanding of how work can be carried out in different locations. So, travel is a great piece of knowledge enhancer in terms of understanding different cultures, what make different people work in different ways. But the other thing is as well, I've done quite a few different types of roles in terms of very technical roles, but also very business leadership roles. I've done roles where I've had no direct reports, and then other roles where I've had hundreds, if not thousands of people directly reporting to me. So all those things add skills to your toolbox. And, I guess part of my advice for anyone sort of entering the early stages of their career would be get as much diversity in your career as possible, because it broadens your knowledge and experience and gives you more exposure, which allows you to become more credible in different conversations in different spheres. So yeah, those travel and working in different locations, doing different types of roles, technical, non-technical, business, etc., certainly allows you to become probably a more rounded professional. It also keeps it interesting, I'll be honest. Absolutely. It makes it more fun, to do stuff that's a bit more variety in it.
Thank you. And the next question is, can you walk us through your day-to-day routine and what frequent problems that you face?
Yeah, so I guess 2 days are never really the same. I obviously, covering a wide geography that I do, I may start the morning by speaking to the team in the Caspian region, so Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan, which are obviously in a different time zone. Probably speak to the guys in the Middle East as well, in the UAE and in Iraq. And then as the day starts to progress, I'll start to speak to more the Norway team and the UK team. a large part of my job is checking in on the operational delivery of the business and making sure that we're still going after the same strategic objectives. We're growing the business in the locations we committed to grow in. We're building relationships with customers. Obviously, Wood is a service company, so we provide services to customers. So making sure that we manage those relationships effectively and deliver successfully for our customers is a big part of my job. So yeah, kind of the morning starts in one part of the day, one part of the globe, and then as the day progresses, I start to move a bit closer to home. But yeah, there's a lot of customer engagement there as well. I spend a lot of time with external customers, trying to understand the challenges that they face and how we as a service company can support them with solutions and unlock those challenges.
Perfect. Thank you. How do you prioritize your tasks and manage your time effectively?
I could be better, I'll be honest. I do tend to put in my diary some thinking time. And I think that's probably something I've started to learn the further I've got through my career, is that it's very easy to spend your whole day in doing mode and not a lot of time in thinking mode. So I actually partition time in my diary just to stop and think about what is really important and what is noise, because there's an awful lot of strategically important things that need more time to be thinking and probably less time doing than the day-to-day stuff, which is less important, but is much more in the doing space rather than the thinking space. So I'll be honest, it's a challenge. I think most of us probably struggle to do that, but putting time in my diary just to stop and think. And I have to say, I do like a list. I do often quite not, just kind of keep myself on track by stopping and putting kind of down what are my priorities for today, this week, this month, this year. Constantly refreshing myself around them and keeping them as a bit of an anchor, so that I constantly use them as a reference point and a datum. What is it I'm trying to achieve this year? And that'll be lots of small incremental steps to get to the goal. So I use my list to keep me back in check and dedicate some time to thinking. That's probably the best advice I can give on that.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much. So when you were a student, yes, did you see yourself in your current role one day?
No, I'll be honest. I probably didn't even know what my current role was when I was a student, to be perfectly honest. I was probably a little bit naive as to how organizations, big global organizations, worked. So I never really saw more than probably a couple of years down the line. So certainly couldn't speculate in terms of the role that I'm in just now. Probably never would have guessed I would have had the diversity and the experiences that I've had within the time that I've been working for the company either. But yeah, it's certainly been a journey, and it's been an enjoyable one as well.
Perfect, thank you. And what are some of the resources individuals can use to learn more about the industry?
Well, we cover lots of different industries, I guess. But I think getting involved with industry bodies. There's a lot of lectures out that are run by universities or run by industry bodies is probably a good point in terms of educating oneself to keep up to date with changing trends, important subjects that are ongoing just now. Obviously, a large part of the company I work for is involved with oil and gas, and it's a big challenge just now as a society for us to transition away in a sustainable way from oil and gas driven society into a more sustainable, renewable one. So keeping up to date with trends like that, and being involved with aware of what government bodies are doing and aware of what industry bodies are doing. Keeping oneself informed in all those kind of discussion points is probably a good thing to keep you aware of how industry changes. In the 20 years I've been with this company, the company's, as I said earlier on, evolved massively, and I'm sure in the next 20 years it'll look very, very different again as well. But probably keeping yourself informed by either engaging with people or by reading up on things is probably a good starting point.
Yes. Are there any networking events or opportunities you would recommend for students trying to explore careers in consulting, engineering, and energy sector?
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of industry-driven events, which I think for young professional students in the early stages of their career to attend would be really beneficial. I think we as an industry are always looking for additional talent to join the companies, not just Wood, but our competitors, our customers. We're constantly looking for new energy to come in and build careers with the organisations. I think looking at industry bodies, Offshore Energies UK is probably a good industry body to connect with. They run lots of evenings where there'll be presentations, thought leadership discussions. Energy Institute is another organisation. So I think connecting with these types of bodies and attending some of their events, which quite often are in the evening, gives young professionals a really good insight as to what's happening, and it makes them more informed and therefore more credible when it comes to potentially pursuing a career with a company for the future. So definitely connecting with industry bodies and being aware of those is definitely a good thing.
Thank you very much. What does it take to succeed in Wood?
That's a good question. One of the things I would always say and I mentor some young engineers and whatnot is the company will support you in your career, but individuals have to drive their own career. Yes. So there is no roadmap to say individual A will come in at this point, and there'll be a roadmap mapped out for them, and they'll arrive at point X or whatever. So I think to succeed in your career, you have to drive your career yourself. You have to take ownership for it. I'll be honest, I haven't been the best at probably sitting down and mapping that out. But every so often I'll stop and I'll sense check. Probably every 2 or 3 years, I'll come to another phase in my career and I'll sit and map out what does the next 2 or 3 years look like. I haven't been as rigorous about doing that, but I would recommend having some form of document or some form of career plan that helps you navigate that. And some of those choices can be quite difficult to make because they can be quite disruptive to your personal life as well. Like moving overseas is not something that can be underestimated in terms of the challenges and the disruption that can cause. But I think managing your career is definitely an important thing. The other piece I would say is, don't be too afraid to take on challenges and don't think you're not ready for a role. There's probably not been many, if any, roles I've done in the company where I've been 100% ready to go to do it. Obviously, I need to have some level of experience and competence to do it, but there's always been a gap. And so don't be too scared to take on a challenge that you think may be bigger than what you're capable of initially, because you might just surprise yourself.
Thank you very much for this advice. Where do you see yourself in the future?
I would hopefully see myself still working for Wood in the future. As I say, Wood's evolved considerably in the last 20 years. I'm sure it'll continue to evolve. I quite like the business leadership piece. I think probably going back into technical is probably less likely. So I suspect it'll be business leadership in some shape or form. Potentially moving back overseas again. I would never rule that out. I think I thoroughly enjoyed the 3 different instances where I lived outside the UK. Life is slightly more challenging now. I have 4 young children and a wife who has a career in the UK, but I think there's maybe in 5 years potentially another stint abroad. I think would be not unrealistic to expect, but certainly still stay with the company and help Wood continue in its journey and evolution.
Thank you. And another question is, do you have any advice for students struggling with stress, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And to be honest with you, I think the way modern society is these days, it's so important to look after your mental well-being. Personally, I do a lot of exercise to try and help manage stress levels. So I do a lot of cycling, for example, to try and manage the day-to-day conflicts that I experience in my job. And I think it's an important thing for young people to make sure that they manage their mental well-being as well. So exercise has always worked very well for me. Contextualizing things is also an important thing. You go through phases in life where you probably are less able to contextualize what's truly important in life. So to kind of stopping and taking stock about what really is important. I can imagine, certainly looking back at my time at university, exams and such like were a stressful time, a high workload volumes in terms of studying. So making sure you take time away from things like that to enjoy yourself, exercise, and manage those stress levels.
So, what is currently happening to oil and gas industry in northeast of Scotland?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier on, obviously there's a huge amount of transition focus just now, and rightly so. The climate change challenge that we're all facing is a very real one, and it's definitely something that needs to be taken seriously and needs action to be put into force. So, what are we seeing in the northeast of Scotland? Well, we're seeing a lot of focus in if we take oil and gas first, there's a big focus on making that production of that more sustainable in terms of looking at how the existing assets that are producing just now can do in a more sustainable way. So, for example, looking at the flaring aspects on a platform. So that's where the gas is maybe flared to atmosphere because it's either not needed or cannot be processed. So reducing that so that it's a lower intensity in terms of environmental impact. Reduced flaring is a big aspect. Another focus area in oil and gas just now is looking at electrification of assets. Obviously, oil and gas facilities offshore predominantly are powered by gas turbines. So they take gas from the reservoir, they burn the gas to produce electricity, and that has waste products, obviously. So there's a lot of focus around how we can make the power for facilities offshore more electrically based rather than fuel gas based. So there's a big focus around how do we take existing infrastructure, which needs to continue to produce oil and gas for the demands of society, but doing it in a more sustainable way. In addition to that, there's obviously alternative sources of energy being looked at in terms of renewables, like offshore wind. You can see that just by standing at Aberdeen Harbour. You can see
Absolutely.
you can see that that's alive and kicking. So there's a big focus about how to continue to nurture that industry and make it more economically viable as well, because there's a lot of policy decisions that need to still be put in place to make it more commercially viable, but make it more widespread as well. And then the other kind of energy piece that you'll hear a lot of discussion around is hydrogen production and storage. So there's a big focus around how hydrogen plays a part in the energy mix and how we can use hydrogen, which is a cleaner fuel, to replace some of the hydrocarbon gas aspects that we've used historically. So a lot of focus on those things. Carbon capture is another big part of the energy mix in terms of how do we deal with some of the emission problems we have just now in terms of capturing those emissions and storing them so that they don't continue to feed the global warming problem that we're all facing. So lots and lots of things happening. I would say that the basin that we're in just now is obviously an aging basin, and so there's less and less new oil and gas discoveries being put in place. And there is an aspect of some of the ones that are there just now are moving towards cessation of production and into decommissioning as well, which provides a huge amount of opportunity to provide technical services to support our customers to remove their assets and repurpose them. So lots and lots of different focus on what oil and gas in the northeast looks like now from probably what it did in the past, and it'll continue to evolve for sure.
Thank you. And the last question is, if you could go back in time, would you change anything about your time as a student at University of Aberdeen, or would you give yourself any advice?
I mentioned the societies
Yeah.
piece earlier on. I definitely probably would have done that. The other aspect, I did have the opportunity to do a year abroad when I was at Aberdeen University, but I never took it. And there are probably two things that I would say I probably would have, on reflection, maybe I should have possibly joined more societies, but probably also should have taken that year abroad. I guess the other piece, which became probably quite evident to myself as I went through recruitment processes and graduate assessment centres and such like, was learning to back yourself a little bit more as well, in terms of being more confident in what's possible. In terms of, it probably took me a wee while to realise that I had something to offer the company. So it's incredible what you can actually do when you push yourself to do it. So having a bit more confidence to take things on, and not be so intimidated by certain things would probably be some advice I'd give a younger self.